Greetings everyone, I am Menos. Welcome to my old room again. Yes, my old room from the main asylum. We visit for a year telling harrowing stories about my life in the other domain. This next one is pretty long, but it does fit the theme on harrowing, considering this has been an arc that I have been referencing throughout my entirety in the Madhouse. Now this story happened to be as I was streaming in this Madhouse while I was starting. Like year zero starting. Yes, this situation was a whole while ago, but it did not kick off until then. Yes, this is talking about my fabled Lipoma Removal Arc. This is one of the tales where it would have been a really scary thought that this could have been something else really bad entirely. It was bad, but thankfully not as bad as regardless, considering how I've managed to handle this. This event also led to my drastic diet change as well. And I will know on how I've been handling it, and how I've handled it nowadays. Now to start this off, this has been for years. However, I really did not notice until around 2021 to 2022, which was once again my first year streaming here. I've been in this asylum for a while, and neither me nor my family had the best diet, especially back then. It was from high cholesterol from the diet I used to have alongside them. Within all the build-up, I check on the back of my head on what I thought was a vein. However, it ended up developing into something else instead. It was a lipoma on the back of my head this whole time. It was up until that June for 2022. Up until there I thought was a vein. And this is in the other domain once again. I discovered this after shaving my head. The lipoma had grown and my parents first noticed there. I thought it was a vein, but they thought it was something worse instead, and after checking out myself, I did have to go get checked out in the emergency room. While arriving there, after a triage and examination from the doctor, they detected that it happened to be a lipoma. But thankfully, it was 100% benign, non-cancerous. Thank God the news would be devastating enough to possibly have me graduate from streaming and give up entirely there. This despite just beginning then. This would weigh way too hard on my conscience for something that heavy to befall me on something I do mainly for fun. And worst of all, this would seriously weigh heavily on my audience. Well, I never mean to actually hurt right here. This is a horror channel. The scaring, weirding, and disgusting people is actually what I do. And that's part of the course for a horror channel. But this is way too much. Way too much for me or anyone else. I never meant to hurt anyone this way. I'll never mean to hurt anyone this way, if at all. For this, I did have health insurance. However, there was only one hospital that would take the full examination there. The one hospital around that would take my insurance was infamous for a very bad dental department. I was worried about the other departments thanks to that. We decided to go anyway. That July, I did get examined and had a general checkup. There was a subunit that took my way, but BS man because it was shocked that I was over 6 feet in that domain. I also opted for an extensive blood test because of an earlier strawberry hepatitis scare when everyone in my family ate strawberries in their fruit salad during that period. I didn't want to chance anything else bad. There are plenty of other fellow night terrors I've seen, but mainly subhumans and a gecko that happened with the lab work. But after getting the results a bit later, turns out I and the others are hepatitis negative for all types. That was another close call. That was the second close call here. Time passes to my next appointment and I thought it was the surgery at hand, but it was the evaluation before consenting to the surgery. The doctor this time around had the usual hour-long wait. Was oddly enough the frost dragon. We were talking about why we were there, and the doctor after the examinations said I was a step close to being pre-diabetic. So whatever diet I had, I gotta stop now. So that's almost anything I was eating, my family was. This not only meant me but everyone had to cut down there. We had to take out every other day when we couldn't think of what to eat, and we were guzzling soda, especially Coke, wherever we could for a while. Especially since this is mid-corona here. This was the third close call of this arc since the lipoma itself. This is a lot. After considering that, I decided I was going to get the lipoma surgically removed since it was interfering with me cutting my hair anyway. And it looked way too suspect even for me. After thanking the doctor for the warning, me and my dad drove off, and from there, Replace soda with salsa water and remove most of the snacks from the kitchen since we were all over those too. I had to know this was not my first attempt at quitting soda at all. I figured at first that was why I was drinking too much, until I caved in because there was only soda left in the house and my folks accidentally gave me Coke when ordering takeout, and I didn't want to waste it. I had to relapse until this next scare. From that point forward, we ate home more, and whenever I did decide to go out to eat, I basically either ordered only the main dish or refused to order a drink besides water. I wasn't ordering them in meals anymore unless I had to for price's sake. The regular strategy did save me money from there. This is all while we had a long wait until we got to the pre-evaluation for my surgery. That next month, I visited the surgery department for a pre-evaluation before the lipoma surgery. Me and my dad checked in first. Another demon checked my weight. I dropped 7 pounds since the last visit and going on a diet and cutting soda and sugar in general. Then after hours of waiting, I was sent to a triage room with a subhuman as the nurse. I was honestly worried, of course, despite my parents not liking that. However, this is a natural response to subhumans that are in an out-of-character role for them. The triage taken gave me a packet of instructions and a 6-wash rag set to prepare before surgery day after checking everything. Another hour-long wait goes and we run to a bigger, fatter, uglier subhuman for a questionnaire section on my evaluations, and having checked my heartbeat and pulse was a bad time. Even feeling that tip of that thing's finger will make me sneak in some sanitizer application without either it or my dad looking. And nearly died and touched the front of my neck for a separate pulse. I thought was the end and that I could prepare for a brooding shower, but not yet. I needed a corona test before any of it would go down in the next few days. And to know I took none of the shots at all. Never trusted them. After the torture was mostly over, I had to take the corona swab test in the next room, with the hobgoblin preparing the swabs under some machines that stored the sanitized swabs. And this was much easier to handle than the other creatures there. They would not let my dad see me there, so I was there waiting with them trying to cover up the functions of how the swab tests were operating. When it was finally time to take the test, the hobgoblin prepared the swab test and said it would last only 10 seconds. And it turned out to be 10. 7 seconds of that swab being shoved up my right nostril, like she was straining a clogged bathroom sink. It was painful. Damn painful. And after the 10th second, she let go, and so much mucus had to be spat out of me, and it did feel weird. And if there are any strange follicles, extremely great chances are I spat them out after having to use the bathroom. I met up with my dad afterwards and immediately told him what happened, and we went back home after what appeared to be my roughest hospital visit in my life thus far, besides a bad incident involving my mom having pneumonia. And yes, she thankfully survived that, but it was still rough despite all the crimes she committed to get her or any others locked up in the asylum's domain. And all her heart crimes here were cult-related especially. Yeah, somehow I had the heart to worry about her here. Moving right along to the day before, I had to use all 6 to wipes as instructed later on. Back of head, neck, then chest, then my arms and armpits, then my hips. Privates are off limits there, but both legs and feet including between the toes like always. And then my back, and finally my buttocks there. All as instructed. That I had to fuel up, basically stuffing myself with food and water, especially brief on cancel calls until midnight struck. That was where I can't eat or drink from there. It would be very bad during the surgical process. Even a bit of drink can kill while getting conked out for surgery. I had to get up super early in the morning there as well. The big day arrived and me and my dad went straight to the hospital for a check-in, but not without forgetting to get my mask in a rush, and yes, those are mandatory for the hospital. But thankfully the car had a spare or two inside despite it being heavier to breathe in. I'm also nervous about the ordeal despite being a low-risk patient there. And I already had it until I would be a low-risk patient there. We arrived and I received a fall-risk band alongside my patient band, but I didn't catch on about it until much later afterwards. Nurse happened to be another just as ugly subhuman, but did not have a hostile air as the previous ones here. Alongside it, along with the team, was a salamander, the same dragon from 3 weeks ago in the hawk. My triage was checked once more and I had to change into only a green gown and yellow indoor socks for the procedure. Nothing else. I had a curtain cover me as I undressed, but it was not a proud moment at all. Because on the other side of the curtain was my dad and a crowd of people, especially the subhuman possible mosquitoes. Not a good sight whatsoever still. I get out of bed and the IV gets inserted in 2 tries. one on my hand, the other on my arm, when the hand part was a failure due to my nerves. The IV also contained the anesthesia that was gonna knock me out later, and I made sure Dad at least got the news of what was going on alongside myself, meaning they'll have to flip me on another bed face down, strap me on an oxygen mask for me to breathe, and operate on me from there. Which was why the fall risk band was there. And from recalling, the band was right on my wrist here. The time comes, and I get rolled into the operation room where my lipoma will be removed at last. But before I can make it to the room, I ended up being rocked to sleep by being in a rolling bed, moving to the operation room. On my dad's side of this part of the tale, he waited for over an hour in the waiting room, and the doctors filled him in on everything that went on. He even said, I happen to have a very good skull shape. The best structure for an operation like right now. And when the time did arrive, he summons him back into the previous room where I wake up after our operations were finished. I had no idea how much time had passed, but when I did wake up, the doctors told me that the surgery was a success, and they stitched and stapled the incision shut, and the IV entries are both bandaged. The entirety of my lipoma, which was on the back of my head, is completely gone from here. With that, I gladly and carefully went home with my dad and slept for most of the day because some anesthesia was still in my system. As a side effect, my throat was sore from the use of the oxygen mask on top of using a regular mask from the rush right before waking up. Now I was unable to eat anything that wasn't a crushed banana and 6 hours at a time Tylenol pill for most of the day. Now I was given a chicken sandwich and some tenders to eat later because nobody saw that part coming at all. And yeah, I had to save it for the next day. Hey, things were that rough, especially for a lipoma that was just removed. 2 weeks passed from there, and I took all the pills within that time. Me and Dad did go to the hospital to get my staples removed once and for all, since having to get used to them that time, much like I've heard from most body modification communities. The last doctor of the tale is another ice dragon, and he tweezed them out and bandaged my head afterwards from finally healing up. Turns out the stitches were indeed the dissolving type that were used. The only notice is that there's going to be alopecia, which is a condition where it becomes a bald spot due to surgery or an injury if the subject somehow survived. And surviving an injury there is miraculous. After that visit, we thanked the doctor and went for pumpkin-themed coffees from the hospital's Wakasaki Himes. And yes, I did not have anything sugary until here. This is another scary summer arc on a wholesome note. And I've had arcs where there were very, very close calls. But this thankfully ended on a rather wholesome note, despite all the scary events, especially lipoma itself and the subhuman examinations. And all this was tracked between multiple sanity checks from that time. Yeah, the single-digit days. 4 years later, which is current as of this video. Since then, I quit most candy and sweets outside of holidays and special events like family birthdays, and quit soda in general with even fewer exceptions after me and my family were consuming both like mad during Corona. Like our lives actually depend on that instead of water. This close call saved us all, not just me. Thankfully, this ended up being a wake-up call to stop being reckless with my own body from there. And as of here, nothing's been on the back of my head except the last horror film I saw. To the lads that recommended me Tetsuo the Iron Man, man, thanks for that one. Knowing this early, you guys are awesome. From there, I managed to lose a good amount of weight and have stabilized my sugar levels to a normal state since then for keeping up on the most part. Not the same story for the rest of my family, unfortunately. They relapsed back to soda and the only drinks I dealt with were either water or coffee. With water sometimes being those carbonated flavored drinks like LaCroix or sparkling ice. The alopecia on the surgery affected part of my head wasn't a big deal after all, since my hair does grow over it. In fact, I never fret about it as much as my family does. And mind you, nothing from this virtual domain carries over the back there. Where I'll be turning my back, you can see my alopecia in this area where you be seeing there. Yeah, I can afford the silly part, okay? But for real, it would have been right on the side of my head where the incision was. There we go. This is why I have full body tracking on, everyone. I hope to keep it up for as much as possible, for as long as possible, so that another lipoma like that doesn't ever show up again. Or anything worse for the matter. With all that ends the Lipoma Removal Arc, and I hope everyone learned from this rather harrowing at first arc. Yeah, the other domain had plenty of monsters, especially completely disgusting, harrowing monsters. So if you somehow land a human in a situation like this, definitely be thankful there. It's a you take what you get situation. As for all situations like this. And yeah, once again, this is actually the least harrowing of my more rougher summer arcs I've had. But I'm glad to share this updated story with you guys from here. And a full video format no less, rather than gathering multiple infos from multiple streams. Although I've liked streaming for fun for a great while now. And it's all thanks to you guys as it's kept going on. With all this, I hope everyone has a happy Halloween. Until next time, be seeing ya. Remember to eat the candy responsibly if you had any, and always watch your head.